The very first machine I ever serviced was this one right here, my very own Janome Mod 100. And I absolutely did not consider myself mechanical at all. And I was very intimidated the first time I pried the plastic covers open on this machine. Today, I'm gonna break down the different options you have when it comes to learning sewing machine service, from apprenticeships to dealer training. And I'll share the exact program I used that allowed me to go from total beginner to sewing machine service business owner in less than a year. My name's Lisa, and this is the series where I go into everything I wish I learned before jumping into the world of sewing machine service and repair. Let's get into it. So when most people talk about sewing machine repair, we're actually talking about sewing machine service. And actually, I find it helpful to distinguish between three categories. There's the at-home maintenance. This is things like changing your needle, cleaning the lint out of the bobbin area, occasionally adding a drop of oil. This is what the owner is doing between service appointments. I like to think of sewing machine maintenance like brushing and flossing your teeth. This is the stuff you are doing at home, but it doesn't replace a trip to the dentist. Then there's service. This is like getting a deep cleaning from the hygienist at the dentist's office. This is the routine deep cleaning and lubrication that sewing machines need regularly in order to stay healthy and keep sewing great for many years to come. Generally speaking, service is recommended for most machines every 1 to 2 years. There are people who sew every day who may need to get their sewing machines serviced more frequently, maybe every 6 months. And then of course, there's people who don't touch their sewing machine for years and only bring it in for service once they start seeing some of those symptoms. And then actual repair is what happens when something's truly broken or like knocked out of alignment. So if we're using the dentist analogy again, this is getting a root canal or needing an extraction. This is the type of stuff we're trying to avoid. And most of it can be avoided if you are taking care of your machines with regular maintenance and service. And actually the vast majority of machines that come into a service shop don't need repairs. They need service. Even a badly seized machine, one where like the hand wheel like won't turn, most of the time that's just because there's old oil that's jamming up the gears and moving parts of the machine that just need to be deep cleaned and relubricated. And the reason this is important and the reason I'm telling you all this is because once I actually understood the skills I needed to focus on and start with, it became a lot less intimidating. You actually don't need to be a mechanical genius and know how to fully tear down these machines and assemble every tiny screw and spring. And in fact, you shouldn't try to do that unless you really know what you're doing. Learning how to service sewing machines is actually very approachable for beginners, even someone who isn't mechanically minded. And I'm evidence of that. I did not know the first thing about the inner workings of a sewing machine before I got started. I knew how to sew, I knew how to thread my machine, I knew when I pressed the pedal what to expect to happen. But as far as how things worked and how to even get in the machine, I did not know the first place to start. So I do think it's really important to understand the different types of training options that exist out there. Let's go through them, talk through the pros and cons of each, and then I'll share the training path I chose that helped me get started. Let's talk apprenticeships. An in-person apprenticeship is perhaps the most traditional way to learn a skilled trade. This is when you learn directly from an experienced technician right alongside them in their shop. And absolutely without question, this is a great and immersive way to learn. You get to work on real machines, see real problems, and learn from someone who's literally done it for years. And when apprenticeships work, they can be incredibly valuable. The challenge is apprenticeships in this field can be really hard to find. You might need a personal connection just to get in the door. And in fact, many rural areas might not even have a local technician to learn from if you wanted to. If you're fortunate enough to find an apprenticeship, they're often unpaid, and you really are kind of at the mercy of someone else's time and what they're willing to teach you. So while apprenticeships are absolutely a great way to learn a trade, it's not really the most realistic or reliably available option for most beginners who might not be willing to make such a commitment, again, if they can even find one. Then there's dealer training. As it sounds, this is training that is specific for a brand, and dealer training is typically offered through a local dealer who needs to be able to support the machines that they're selling. This might be a local quilt shop who also sells sewing machines, or sometimes it's a standalone sewing machine emporium that sells a bunch of different brands. But those dealers need to be able to service and support the machines that they sell. So manufacturers, your Berninas and Genomes and Singers of the world, will provide training through those dealers. In order to get dealer training, you need to have a relationship with that dealer so that they can sponsor you in order to get access to the training materials and certifications offered by that brand. And while dealer training is very good at teaching you how to support specific brands, it does have some significant drawbacks for beginners. So first, as I mentioned, you can't actually attend dealer training unless you're either already employed by a dealer or if a dealer agrees to bring you on and sponsor you. And most dealers aren't really set up to train absolute beginners. When you go to training, they expect you to have a level of mechanical knowledge or familiarity of the day-to-day work of a repair technician. And the training you get is brand specific. You're not necessarily going to learn the foundational skills or theory that works across different brands or even different eras of machines. And don't get me wrong, dealer training absolutely is valuable, but it's kind of really designed for people already in the system, not necessarily for someone trying to figure out their very first steps and get their toes wet in sewing machine repair. I do want to talk about some of the in-person intensive training options I came across when I was doing my research. So these training sessions are usually a few days long, up to a week long, and as they sound, it focuses on hands-on in-person learning. These come with a price tag. I've seen different courses offered in the range from $1,500 to $3,000, which is definitely a pretty hefty investment, especially if you're just getting started. And while I can absolutely see the benefit of this style of training, I mean, you get to feel and touch real machines and work with somebody who has a lot of experience. You're certainly gonna get a feel for how things work. And for many people, it's likely a really great way to get started. The downside I see in these classes is they're trying to pack in, a lifetime of repair knowledge in a couple days. And that's a lot of information you're gonna get in a very short amount of time without a lot of chances to apply it practically on your own machines or practice machines or someday client machines. So you're getting all that information, but what happens once the class ends? Because usually the support also ends as well. So what happens then when you get home and the machine in front of you doesn't look like the one you trained on? Or there is an adjustment you need to make and it's been 6 months or 2 years since you had your training and you haven't encountered that type of issue since your training. What do you do if you don't remember the exact protocols and you don't have anyone you can go to for support? For me, I was really hesitant to make that type of financial commitment unless I knew I was going to have support after the class. I'm not trying to tell you not to do them. In-person intensives can be really valuable training. If you're starting from zero, it may not be enough on its own to build that lasting confidence that you're going to want and need. Okay, elephant in the room, we need to talk about YouTube. A lot of people start with YouTube, and that makes sense, of course. It's literally right in front of you right now. It's free and there is seemingly endless resources, and there definitely are some really great sewing machine resources here. Now, the problem with learning on YouTube is there really isn't going to be any structure to your training. Advice is going to conflict from one person to another. There's no way for you to know if what you're watching is accurate or appropriate for the machine that's in front of you. There's also no one to tell you when to stop and let you know if you're taking on something that is genuinely beyond your scope or your capabilities. And that comes with some obvious risks. You can really do some serious damage to a machine by removing the wrong screw or trying to pry something that simply should not be pried. Maybe if you're working on practice machines that you picked up free from Facebook, Maybe that's a risk you're comfortable taking, but you do not want to be making guesses or following bad advice if you're working on another person's machine or if you're trying to restore a family heirloom. And while YouTube can be helpful, I absolutely reference YouTube in my shop. It's not a safe foundation for learning how to do sewing machine service and repair the proper way. What I was hoping to find was an online program that would allow me to learn at my own pace, but give me the structure I needed to make sure I was learning the right things at the right time in the right way. There were a couple different online programs out there, but I wasn't impressed initially by what I saw. Some of them amounted to what was the equivalent of a few PDFs, and you don't get any long-term support. And it was a pretty high cost. I mean, like hundreds of dollars for a PDF, and then you're only allowed to like ask questions for a few weeks after you download it. Now, I'm not saying the information in those types of programs isn't good. I did not try them myself, but I didn't have the confidence that, again, those were gonna give me the real training and long-term support that I was looking for. So let me tell you, I was so happy when I found an online sewing machine service course that checked all the boxes and actually was designed with beginners in mind. And that program is Sewing Doc Academy. What's unique about Sewing Doc Academy when I compare it to the other training programs that exist out there is that their focus isn't just to teach professional technicians. Their actual mission is to teach people who sew how to care and service for their own machines so that they can skip going to the repair shop. Because their program is designed with beginners in mind, it's providing you a structured step-by-step course that teaches the basics of machine service and those foundational repair skills, but it also goes beyond that. There's actually courses that cover timing and advanced adjustments and pro-level diagnostics. And for vintage machines, they actually teach motor service and wiring as well. The training programs were created by Andy Barney, who is a sewing machine technician who has many years of real shop experience. She's really an amazing teacher. She explains things in a really straightforward, plain English type of way. I like that the program is video-based, so you're actually seeing machines open, seeing those parts handled, and you're actually seeing the procedures demonstrated. This isn't just reading instructions or looking at a diagram and hoping that you're interpreting them correctly. So Sewing Doc Academy is kind of split into two foundational courses. There's the Remove Your Covers program, which focuses on servicing modern machines like this one. Just about any home domestic machine that has a plastic cover on it falls within the Remove Your Covers universe. And there are some exclusions for certain brands and certain high-end machines. I would definitely read up on those exclusions so that you're aware of what's covered and what's not on their website. Then the other lane is the vintage program called Vintage Sewing Machine Mastery, which, as you can probably guess, this is the program that covers all the vintage machines. The programs are really broken down into focused modules, so you're learning things at a logical order, in a realistic pace, and there's a focus on what the machines really need. So proper cleaning and lubrication, inspection and diagnostics, how to balance tension, and there's certain rules you need to follow every time to make sure you're balancing your tension correctly, and really giving you an understanding of how and why sewing machine problems happen in the first place. And I really like that Andy's teachings are very clear about what you should and should not be doing as a beginner. You're not going to be pushed into doing things you're not ready for or being set up to make a costly mistake. For example, in the modern machines, we're not touching electronics or computer boards. Those are the types of things that you probably need to go back to a dealer for. And knowing that is what really gave me the confidence, because I'm not just guessing. I know where my lane is, I know when to stop, and that's really important if you ever plan on working on machines that don't belong to you. Now, the reason I really believe in Sewing Doc Academy and why it especially works so well for beginners is the fantastic support and community. The support doesn't end once you purchase the program or even after you watch the videos. You get to email the instructors at any time and get a real response from a pro about the machine you're working on. There's also private Facebook communities where you can learn from others and ask questions. Also inside the Vintage program, there's weekly live sessions and just lots of real opportunities to ask questions as you're learning. You're not doing this alone. When something doesn't make sense, you can ask. If you're unsure about what you're seeing and if it's normal, you can get feedback. When you're stuck, you don't have to guess or push through out of fear. Having a community of people that are learning alongside you and having instructors that are accessible and knowledgeable and are expecting you to ask questions, it makes such a difference. I've really met some wonderful people and found such awesome community inside Sewing Doc Academy. The best part about the support and the community is you get access to all of that for life when you buy the program. Like as many machines as you work on, even if you're doing this for a living and are working on many machines per week, I can ask questions at any time, get real answers, never feel stuck. It's truly such an incredible value. So let's talk about the investment, because obviously that is a big factor when you're comparing the training options. And one of the things that genuinely surprised me is that Sewing Doc Academy doesn't require a huge upfront cost. You can get started learning for less than $250. The Remove Your Covers program and the Vintage Sewing Machine Mastery program, both under $250, and you're gonna learn the foundational skills that you can use to start cleaning and servicing sewing machines today. Even if you only ever service your own sewing machines, you don't end up building it into a business, the course absolutely will pay for itself. But the fact that I can take those skills and build a whole business from them makes the value of this program truly outstanding. Now, I personally knew that I wanted to learn both modern and vintage and was planning to build this into a business. So I did choose to invest in the full maintenance program, which includes those deeper diagnostic procedures and teaches you concepts like hook timing. And that program has absolutely given me all the skills I've needed to successfully launch my own service business. By the way, if you do decide that Sewing Doc Academy is a program that you want to try for yourself, I'm happy to offer you a discount code. The code LISA20 will get you 20% off any program you choose. I'll make sure to leave a link in the description as well. So I hope this video really gave you a little bit more clarity about your options for learning sewing machine service and repair. In the rest of the series, I'm going to be going deeper into things like money. Let's talk about how much money you can actually make doing this. How long does it actually take to learn these skills? And I'm going to cover all the things I wish I knew before getting started. So hit subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one.